Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Wednesday, June 18th edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming here from the WellPoint Studios here in beautiful, historic downtown Lowell. A little rainy, wet start to the day today, but we're moving into some hot, humid summer weather later on today and over the rest of, the rest of this week and maybe into next week as well. Of course, things are always hot in the city of Lowell, always a lot going on, and we're here on the Daily Pulse to keep our finger on the pulse of the city and the world around it. And today, I'm excited because I have a trio of guests joining me here in the studios. Of course, you know my regular Wednesday co-host, former mayor of the city of Lowell, former city councilor, former headmaster at the high school, former everything.
Whatever.
Bill Samaras is joining us in the studios. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning. Good morning, sir.
Always good to have you here. Now, I always refer to you as Mr. Mayor, but when I direct the question today and say Mr. Mayor, I'm going to have to clarify because Mr. Lowell Mayor and former Lawrence Mayor Dan Rivera is joining us here as well. He's sitting in the middle seat there. Dan is now the CEO of the Coalition for a Better Acre, the CBA. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for joining us here as well today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about it.
And off to the right of your screen, viewing device here, is the Director of Operations at the Coalition for a Better Acre, Shamir Rivera-Quintal. Who, did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Who we found out was a former student.
Yes.
Of Mr. Samaras's.
Yes, Lowell High, class of 2006.
Love it. Now, as a like principal, how would he compare to him as a politician? Was he? Which role was he better at?
Oh no, great at both. Great at both. No, I loved my high school years, and I think he's doing a fantastic job here. And I'm glad he's able to continue to stay involved in the city. That's fantastic.
You guys are far too kind to him. I use Wednesday mornings as an opportunity to just bludgeon him.
Why do you think I like being hidden at Lowell High School? The students were great.
Oh.
Much easier than that. We've got a lot to talk about. You've got a couple of events coming up. A big event, 6 Degrees of the Acre, a week from tomorrow. You got an event tonight, actually, that I want to touch on quickly as well, because that's a fun event. And then we're going to keep you guys around, and you may want to just, slink off a little bit as we get into some more political stuff and planning and how you build a city. Because I figure, you get a former mayor of Lowell, a former mayor of Lawrence, a guy who also headed mass development. I'm curious their thoughts on all the things happening with the CBA.
Actually, maybe we should go get a cup of coffee together. I don't want to be here.
Oh, no.
I have to learn. This is all great. I got to learn.
I'm using her as cover.
I have a topic that you're going to love, specifically for you, because, he was the mayor of a high school of a city that moved its high school out of the downtown.
Just ahead of schedule, no comment.
For a lot less than the $400+ million we're going to pay here in Lowell.
I'm shocked that you brought that up.
Did I mention no comment?
Thank you.
We'll drag them in. Let me quickly thank our Daily Pulse sponsors before we get into the discussion. Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, certified appraiser in both states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, you need to get in touch with Ray. realestaterayBooten.com is the web address. You'll get his phone number. You'll get his email address, realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. WellPoint is the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Thank you to WellPoint. Thank you to Ray. I'm going to thank our other sponsors in a few minutes, but first, let's turn to our guest today and get right down to it. All right, so tonight is the annual CHOP dinner for the Coalition for a Better Acre at the Senior Center, and you've even got some special guests, some special athletes that are popping in to say hello.
Well, usually everyone that comes to CHOP dinner is a special guest because we want to get everybody from the community in to have really access, especially folks who live in the Acre, to come and have access to all these resources that are supportive of, people who may have health issues, people who may be struggling with mental health issues, or people who need support, even just, they want to change over their electrical system to do photovoltaics, all that stuff. We have, I think every CHOP dinner, there's about 25 tablers that are there, kind of give information for people to come through, and we provide a dinner for folks to come and eat. Tonight's a little different because we have a football team coming.
You know how much it costs to feed football players? Those linemen are big. You know, that's going to get pricey for you.
If you know Loli Sierra, she probably got them down on price and said, you got to come already fed.
Okay.
You know, she's
Very
a top
smart.
bargainer. And the Massachusetts Pirate players are going to be with us, a football team that's local and regional. We're just really excited to have them come and kind of lift everybody's spirit. And it is family night, and so there'll be other games being played, dominoes and cornhole, things like that.
Yeah, and
usually
some raffles. There's some raffles. This actually happens monthly from April to October, which is
so it's
really
a
great.
monthly event.
Oh yes,
And
absolutely.
how many people typically show up?
So I'm always, you know, they exceed always the expectations, and it's usually between 80 and 125.
Wow, that's a great
Good
turnout.
number.
80 and 25, 125 people, and people come. You know, some of the nights is more specialized. Like towards the end, we'll have candidating. Candidates will come through, and there'll be a lot more people that'll come that night. We had, Latino Heritage Night, the Asian Heritage Night. Those nights, because of the type of food people come out, but steadily between 80 and 120 people come.
Wow, that's a phenomenal turnout. Love it. I'm gonna have to crash one. Am I allowed to crash?
Yeah, come on.
Oh,
You
anyone
don't
can
have to
come.
Oh,
be from the Acre to come,
Everyone's
right?
welcome. Everyone's welcome.
Okay.
Tonight's also really cool because the second floor gallery, the art gallery that the senior center has put together is open, so people can also go to the second floor and see some of the artwork there as well, which will be really cool.
So we do it with a group of coalition of people, CMAA, Mill City Growth, Mill City Grows, Youth Build. The city provides some support. Lowell Health Center, Lowell Housing Authority, Merrimack Valley Food Bank, and of course we're a NeighborWorks chartered member. So all those folks come together. They meet all the time. What are we going to talk about? What's going to be the central role? And tonight is going to be a family night.
All right, you've got a nice little coalition of partners there
nice.
helping out. And then, of course, just barely a week, 8 days,
8 days.
from tonight, Thursday, that would be
June 26th.
The 6 Degrees of the Acre annual celebration. That's become a lot of fun. You describe it I saw it on your Facebook page as an elegant evening to celebrate all things Acre. Does that mean I have to wear my tux if I...
That is up to you.
You feel comfortable
The
and
dress
like
code
that.
is dressy but casual. So
Dressy
however people feel comfortable showing up will be great.
All right. And your honoree this year, somebody who's been a huge partner to the CBA, but also to every organization doing things to make our community better, Jay Linehan from the Greater Lowell Community Foundation.
We found out last year that you have to celebrate somebody that has done a lot for the Acre. And last year, Young-Ju, who was the executive director for 10 years, was celebrated as really the champion of the work that CBA did. And it really made for a more lively kind of event. And so we thought, hey, we got to keep this going. There are plenty of people that are champions of the Acre. We probably keep doing this for 100 years because people have been helping people in the Acre for a long time. But Jay came up right away because all the work he did through COVID. I think he was storing PPE in his garage at his house. He was out there handing stuff out on his own. And for a guy who's not as young as most folks, that's a dangerous thing to do, right? To take that in his hand.
Careful about those days.
No, you're right. A lot of people were scared and they were, distancing themselves from people.
Yeah.
As you said, he was doing face mask deliveries at a time when there was a shortage of them.
Yeah.
And all those things, plus ensuring that the food was getting out there. The governor at the time, at the state level, was leaning on the foundation really to support all the work around food insecurities here, and that was critical during that time period. And then we had the Moody Street flood that happened. It was a big. I wasn't here for that. Again, hands in, making sure that the foundation was helpful. All those things. I always like it, but also because he's. My first couple of days here, he was very helpful and guided me and giving me kind of a lay of the land here in Lowell. But also, he's a Lowell kid.
Yeah.
Lowell High, stuff. He worked at Middlesex for the longest time. I think it's important to celebrate those folks in this way.
Yeah, certainly, and he's one of the folks that Lowell kind of leans to in times of need.
He's always been very involved.
Yeah, I love the name of the event, by the way, though, 6 Degrees of the Acre, because it's so true. Everybody in some way, if you go back far enough, you will find a connection to Lowell's Acre neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Whether they still, they've been lifelong Lowellians, but they've moved on to a different neighborhood, or if they moved out to Drake it as my family did, or Chelmsford, or even many times to other states, you can usually find within a lot less than 6 degrees a connection to Lowell's Acre neighborhood. To me, it really is it's the quintessential Lowell neighborhood. It's it's the center. Even though we have a downtown, the Acre was the center where everybody kind of first comes in and then works their way, up the ladder, making room for the new wave of people that are coming in looking for that American dream, as my parents.
Oh, absolutely. And 𝐁𝐤 Choi, our former executive director, is the one who started this fundraiser and fundraiser. And that's exactly what she said. She came here from Madison Park CDC and a couple other places before here. And everyone she spoke to said, oh, I grew up in the Acre, or my mom grew up in the Acre, or I used to work in the Acre, or went to school in the Acre. And she heard it over and over and over again. And she thought of the 6 degrees of separation, or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whichever one resonates better with you. And that's where the name came from. And it's really stuck. And it means a lot. We get excited every year to celebrate and get to hear people's stories about how they're connected to the Acre.
And I'm blessed to work with a bunch of people that have that similar type of kind of, their trajectory in life has been through the Acre, and Shamir's one of those people, who her and her family came through there. She can talk about it on her own, but, Dolores Sierra and her, these are people who were kids in the Acre who are now helping us for CBA.
And you mentioned with when we were talking about Jay, his organization is the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, and I'm amazed as I've learned about what they do, and I can kind of see it in your old stomping grounds, Lawrence. Do you still live?
I still live in Lawrence.
You still live in Lawrence, so I know that they're kind of trying to emulate that, right? With a kind of a Lowell plan, or
the Lawrence. They have the Lawrence partnership.
The Lawrence partnership. They're trying to do. I would imagine these are models that are kind of followed in gateway cities throughout Massachusetts, but also the country when you get down to it, right? There's certain formulas that work.
There's the Lowell plan and the Salem plan, and then there's the Lawrence partnership. I think there's a Fall River partnership, but I'm pretty sure y'all were the first, because I think the Lowell plan was the first, because the stuff they did in Salem was around making the historic park after you guys already had your historic park. And so they have a big ship there from, back in the colonial days.
But we also had Paul Tsongas guiding a lot of those issues at that time to make it
But the coalition thing is, and this is a really important piece. Why I love this organization is like it's a coalition of people trying to get something done, and that's what the plan did. In a time when people were actually fighting each other. I know, and Nikki Stein was a great congresswoman, and her husband was a great congresswoman, almost a congressperson, almost a president. But getting all those big wigs in the room together and getting them to agree on something, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So these organizations are very important.
And by the way, I'd be remiss to not put the CBA in, because the work that you guys have done in that neighborhood, it's completely transformed it. There was a time, I grew up there, lived there for 6-7 years before my parents moved. But, we never thought about safety or anything. It was just a neighborhood. It was home. But there was a time, I was born on Adams Street. And there was a time in the 80s you wouldn't drive down Adams Street, let alone feel free to walk there or go to where the Market Basket is on the corner of Broadway and Fletcher. And that's slowly starting to change, and it's continuing to change. And I'd love to see it in 10 years when some of these projects you're currently working on start to tie in with some of the things the university is working on. And I think it's going to be amazing. So what the CBA does is vitally important as well, because you guys play a big role in that.
Listen, I think from its inception, through the work they did in '86 to get a hold of what's now called North Canal, it was going to be a property that HUD was going to sell on the open market after it's it lived its useful life out, and instead of allowing the HUD to sell it to on the market, the tenants got together, organized with Charlie Gargiulo and a bunch of those folks who I like to call the sons and daughters of eminent domain. They saw their parents' houses torn down and their grandfathers and grandparents' houses torn down, and they said never again. And they won this fight to get these units. 264 units of affordable housing since that day. And then they went around and started doing more of it. By the way, that type of development is sticky. Community development is very sticky. Like, somebody said, that 3 deck is getting fixed. I'll buy a 3-decker down there and fix it. And all of a sudden, you got all these people doing stuff. And so we have a bunch of properties in the Acre that CBA has over time, redeveloped. But the amplification of that work also is there. There's a bunch of the housing authorities done a lot of great work. CTI has done a bunch of great work. And places otherwise it'd be an empty lot or a property that was otherwise demolishable.
And you pay taxes, correct?
Yeah, we haven't looked.
And people should know that.
And I need to look because you used to say make sure you have this statistic in your pocket all the time. Before she left, it was in the top 5 taxpayers of the city, and that's because we have close to 556 units of housing.
Who taught him the history of the Acre? You haven't been here a year, right? You came in as interim in July, right?
I'm a fanboy of all gateway cities, but Lowell specifically. I don't know if it's because I got beat at Lowell High School, Lawrence High School football, and I try to plot my comeback against it. But no, I have always looked down the river at Lowell as a place for us to get inspiration in Lawrence. And they've never fell through. And a lot of Lawrence people that working in Lowell now, the headmaster of Lowell High is Lawrence. He went to high school with my sister.
But you've got that history of the CBA and what happened to that neighborhood down pretty well for a guy who's only been here for a year.
I have a beer every now and then with Charlie Gargiulo. He keeps me steady and ready. He's a
great guy.
And it's endearing. Like it warms my heart to hear that that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, but that speaks well to the position that you've accepted, because it's one thing to accept a position and to work that position. It's another thing to understand it, really understand, and understand its history, because you can establish a better direction.
But we have a couple of neighborhoods in Lawrence that are like that. The Arlington neighborhood is like that in Lawrence, where everyone went through the Arlington neighborhood. The North Common neighborhood, if you're an Italian kid from Lawrence and you grew up there, you went through the North Common neighborhood. South Lawrence West, which was open fields and farmlands for a little while. If you're an Irish kid, you probably came through those areas. So I get that, the beauty of that connection. And that's why the celebration is important, to remember everybody we have this connection back. And highlighting Lowellian is really important.
Right. So besides honoring Jay Linehan, what else takes place at the 6 Degrees of the Acre Gala?
We'll have some fun games and raffles. We'll have a silent auction. There'll be food, of course, so community teamwork, Youth Build is catering. We will have a cash bar and some music and a short program. It's going to be really fun. It's always really fun. It's a party.
It's in a place that
I was going to say, you didn't choose a banquet hall outside the city. You're actually doing it at my old stomping grounds where my kids now go to school, the Hellenic American Academy, in their big giant cultural center. So you are doing it in the Acre neighborhood.
Yeah, we try to find every couple of years we try to find a new location in the Acre. So I think we're sort of running out of spaces. So if anybody has any recommendations that can hold 250 to 350 amount of folks, that'd be great. But we're really excited to work with the.
Oh, you're gonna have to switch it late. Well,
the Hellenic. They've been fantastic to work with so far.
Awesome.
They've been really
glad
great.
to hear
You're
that.
gonna do this thing called the wine toss?
Oh, we are. Yes, we are going to do a wine toss.
It's not throwing wine at each other.
Okay.
No.
That
You
seems
can
like alcohol.
you can buy
Don't
some.
waste it.
You can enter, spend a little money, get 3 rings, and try to land it on a bottle of wine. And if you land, you get to take that bottle of wine with you. If not, you buy some more and you keep playing. Up to you, but it'll be really fun. It'll be really fun.
That's a victim's game. And I'm the victim.
I may steal that from one of the organizations.
We have an amazing planning committee. They have been so helpful, and they had some really great ideas. So we're excited. It's every year there's new things, and this is a new one for us.
That's a good game.
Love it. Tickets still available? Anybody who's watching this, listening to us, want to go?
Yes. So $75 a ticket, $50 for young professionals. So you can still buy them online. And if you get 10 tickets, it's $700. So you get a little bit of a discount if you buy 10 tickets.
Does young professionals include 59-year-old business people?
It is.
How about 80-year-old high school?
Oh, professional?
I mean, I think that's a good category.
It's the honor system, Teddy. So you decide. Okay.
There's no senior discount for Bill and I.
You might get a sideways look if you have gray hair walking.
I'll buy you a ticket if you want to come.
And the chop dinner tonight, what time? And can people just
Chop dinner starts at 5:30. People can come in as they can. It's 5:30 to 7, and it's no cost. So chop does not cost anything to attend.
All right. Love it. Great.
Can you say one thing about I think is important with the the celebration next Thursday, please come through. It is really connected to the service we do. We do take some of the proceeds we get from the real estate units when we're not trying to keep them up. Because you still have to like make sure the roof doesn't leak and the windows are tight, all those things, and if been plowing the snow. But we use the proceeds of this to run our youth development program, to run our food pantry, to do ESOL for people, newcomers who need to learn English classes. You know, the food pantry, again, important.
Shop. We can't do these things without it. Yeah.
So that it's connected entirely to that piece of it. And there's gonna be a DJ, and you know, maybe some people will be dancing. I don't know. It'll be a good time.
DJ Manny's the best. So.
Oh yeah, DJ Manny is the best. All right, looking forward to 2 great events: the Chop Dinner, the monthly Chop Dinner. I made the mistake of thinking it was an annual event, and of course the annual 6 Degrees of the Acre celebration. We're chatting with Dan Rivera, CEO of the Coalition for a Better Acre, Shamir Rivera-Quintal, the Director of Operations. We've got former Lowell Mayor Bill Samaras here as well. We're gonna tap into that expertise of what they currently do, but also what they used to do as mayors, and talk a little bit about community development and things that maybe we can look forward to here in the city of Lowell. Let me just quickly thank our Daily Pulse sponsors. We've already told you about Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you as well to our friends at WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that feels like home. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space at TMI. They even have a property down in the Acre, School and Broadway Street. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell and southern New Hampshire since 1925. That's a century of service to our community. And let me tell you, they do a lot more stuff behind the scenes in the community. Some of that stuff's going to finally start to go public. The Greater Lowell Community Foundation, we've talked a lot about them. They're also a sponsor here of the Daily Pulse, improving the quality of life in our communities through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis E. Preventure Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell has counted on since 1982 to protect its most valuable assets, and by the aforementioned Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Sanger Center. 3 wins in a row for the Pirates. They're back home this Saturday night, looking to drill the Tulsa Oilers and get into a playoff positioning. A long way to go, but they've climbed out of that hole, and they're looking in pretty good shape right now. Back with Bill Samaras, Dan Rivera, Shamir Rivera. All right, so let's talk about community development in general. And I'm curious your thoughts, Mr. Rivera, somebody who had to do this an awful lot in the city of Lawrence, and now you're doing it in Lowell. Of course, you can always blame the guy, getting the big salary over there in City Hall. But how do you see the city of Lowell as having up to this point, handled community development and taken on some of the issues that a gateway city faces, and where do you see it going? Are you optimistic about the direction the city is moving in? Do you think it needs to kind of do a little more, a kind of a hard look and see where it's going? What's your take overall?
See, I don't want to come off as like not answering the question, but I got to tell you, it always starts and ends with a group of people, either elected or non-elected, that always want to do good and want to support development in a major way, even if you have disagreements. The fact that we are having our conversations like this about housing, about whatever the matter may be, is really important, because some communities, they just don't talk about it, and then it festers and it becomes a problem that you can't really get out of hand. I think the direction is great. You have a great city manager, Tom Golden. I think you have a focused and active city council. I was a former city council. It's one of the hardest jobs in local government, and even a little bit harder the mayor, because you get all the complaints and very little of the power to change much. And so what I see is them really struggling with what America's struggling with, and that is, how do we manage this problem of the need for housing, the need to do something with people who are unhoused, and the economy. Like something. By the way, we all have a picture of what we imagined our city was. We did in Lawrence. You guys have and what we want it to be. And on a good day, if you ask 100 people, you'll get 100 different views of that.
Sure.
And so, getting people together and have this conversation, which is why I like community development, because you have a meeting and you have these people have these conversations, and you get people at what they think is the lowest rung, but really they live here. we talk a lot about people leaving Massachusetts. I like to spend a lot of time talking about people who are not leaving at all. They're just not going to go anywhere. And if you focus on those people, you can make a real vibrant community. And I think things are on the right track. The work the city council went to Canada. I mean, we never went to Canada. Lawrence. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think we might have gone to the Dominican Republic, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they went on this like idea of going to do rebuilding a downtown in the city. That's where it starts, and having that vision on it. The wins are actually a little boring. Making sure ISD, the processes are really easy to do. Making sure that if somebody wants a local developer wants to spend money to develop something, and I know Giovanni over at Department of Development, she's doing a great job making sure this is the case, is that it's flawless. You know what you're going to expect when you walk in the door. You know what is expected of you as a developer. All those things, no surprises. I used to say no surprises. That way they feel like good. They want to spend more money. The easier you make it, the better it is. I know that the nonprofit developers always feel welcomed by the city. And they've been doing it for a very long time, you know?
No, what I see, when I got to know Mayor Rivera as mayor in Lawrence, and he was often complimented by business people in Lowell for the vitality that was being created in Lawrence. But the thing is, we have a city manager now who knows how to deal with small issues. You know, I mean, because he's on weekends, he travels the city. So if you're complaining about your street or what have you, he's there. And that's important to people. But also, he understands how to think and be a visionary. But the thing is, you can be all of that, but you need the right kind of team. Not only the city council, but someone like Dan in the CBA. Okay, you're looking at Lowell Housing. Ta Chan, director of Lowell Housing.
Tremendous developments they're doing in the community.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you get those type of organizations that really reach out into the structure of the city.
Yeah.
And what I see as an observer at this particular point, I see the city really heading in a good direction.
Yeah, so that's something I wanted to ask about.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking me there. How closely do you work? How closely does the CBA work with the city administration and the city council? I know that you've spoken highly of Manager Golden, even though I'm trying to push you to replace him at some point. Maybe not for a few years, but I would think that you're a valuable resource to have. Obviously, the CBA is, but you in particular, given that you've led a city as he is kind of doing it. Do you guys trade ideas? Talk
We
a
definitely
lot.
talk. I was a very young, freshly minted mayor when he was a state rep, and the state reps in Lawrence had a really good relationship with the state reps in Lowell. Even back during the time when Senator Pangiatakis was here, like it's always feel like the rumblings of like competition was always on the ground and never at the state level. Those guys really was a caucus, really the Merrimack Valley caucus. I always felt like
They knew how to work together.
exactly. And so I always felt like when they were up at the State House fighting for Lowell, they were also fighting for Lawrence. So he's been a friend that way. And as soon as I came, we talked, and we've been up to see him a couple of times. I try to stay out of his hair, because I want to make sure you give him as best you can. But I think that we do feel like partners, mostly because we're a CHOTO. It's one of these organizations that are that the city gets some monies from the federal government to spend. I should know what CHOTO means, but I don't. But it's a designation that us and CTI have alone. And so when the city gets money to spend in those through those organizations, they can only spend it with CTI or us. And so we're always partnering with them. Then there's other initiatives that they want to get support with, and so we jump in and help them. So they were getting people to review the 5-year community development plan for HUD, and they would come to Chop Dinner. And they would come to Acre Fest, and they're having people do surveys like that. So we do interact with them a lot. He's got a great team. Giovanni's been doing this for a long time. His staff is top notch. We came through a couple times when I was at Mass Development, and you always felt like they had it in hand.
So with all that said, were you surprised last week when the city council took kind of that Lowell Forward plan, which had a big housing component to it, and kind of put the brakes on it for the time being? And does that kind of put the brakes on some of the things that you guys are doing at CBA?
I don't think so. I think it's what everybody is struggling with. How much housing where? It doesn't mean that it's not going to go. I mean, that the other fallacy is because they said no, that it won't happen. I mean, I think people are still going to build housing,
Yeah.
you know, and just
course.
maybe not at the levels that folks are talking about, but I think it's just this thing that everybody's kind of dealing with across the country. There's a total need for housing in time, and that what I would say is this: you can directly point to any great thing that's happening in the city of Lawrence today because we built housing. And we built, when I was there, 2,200 units of housing in 8 years, and it made the world of a difference. People downtown, you want people to shop downtown, let them live downtown. And so we built a ton of housing. It's still happening today. You know, some people are concerned, what about the density? You know, I remember remind people that in the turn of the century, the former century, 100,000 people lived in Lawrence. There was less cars, so you felt like it was that, but there was density back then. I don't know what the number was for Lowell, but I think it was the same, if not more, maybe 120,000 people living in the city. And you all felt less crowded because you didn't have the cars. The cars have made it a lot more crowded for people. But the reason why we became great, because we have this center of people. And if people don't have places to live, it makes it really difficult. They'll land on they're going to deal, like all good, you know, political and governmental organizations, they'll land on something. It's just not what they happen. We don't feel like it's going to throw water on our stuff. Our stuff is way different.
Do you think they're trying to understand the situation? I mean, it's like there are people, you have to change the mind of some people. Okay. I mean, a lot of people don't understand, you know, what do you mean by housing? How is it going to impact my neighborhood? I mean, do I have any rights during that? An effort has to be made to make sure people understand, you know, what is going to happen now, why it's the direction we should go in, and what will be the results.
Yeah, I think it's our job to educate folks, and anybody that has read mercy on it, I would be careful to say that we're going to teach them something. You know what I'm saying? Like they know what they're talking about because they talk to their constituents. So I would never say that. What I say is that every day we have an opportunity to show people what good quality affordable housing looks like. And affordable housing is anything between 30% of medium household income, area income, to 110% of area income. And you think, well, 100% then, but medium income for is really not that high. It's hard to live on. And so how can you get folks to see that you're going to put quality housing in? It's not, and I use this as probably as a dog whistle, and I probably shouldn't, but like it's not going to be Julian Steel. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be good quality. All you got to do is go to the Acre Crossing. Acre Crossing? Mm-hmm. Who did that?
Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership.
Yeah.
And to see what affordable homeownership you look at.
Like.
And you think, oh man, this is not affordable. That can't be affordable housing.
It's beautiful.
So perfect segue, because that's where, you know, there's some people say, no, we don't need any housing at all. We're too big, you know, no more. Yeah. But most people, like, okay, we need to grow as a community. You need to provide good housing, not housing, you know, that was built in the 1800s and needs some love. But the battle always comes over affordable versus market rate. Mm-hmm. And the two have always been seen as kind of completely separate. But now, you know, you've said the word affordable home ownership. Yeah. I didn't know what the heck it was, even when they rebuilt Julian Steel into that affordable home ownership model. And that was something that then State Representative Golden was preaching to me all the time. He'd say, this is the way out. This is how you build generational, you know, wealth. You know, because folks, if you own something, real estate property will appreciate, you sell it, you make a little money, and you start to move your way up the ladder, paving the way for the next generation.
You're creating opportunity.
You're creating opportunity. Perfect. So how realistic is that goal, though? Because you mentioned Julian Steel, which now they call River's Edge or whatever it's called out there. I actually lived there for 6 months before we bought our home. Yeah. But I didn't realize Acre Crossing was affordable home ownership.
The state is focused on it. The federal government is focused on it. There was going to be a lot of money put into it. But it's, you know, the one thing I will say is that there's plenty of spaces to get some of that stuff done. And so there'll probably be a bunch of either CTI, us, LHA. We'll get into those projects. But I just want to make sure people know I'm a veteran. And when I get old and I maybe sell my house, maybe I'll find a place to live. But if let's say I don't have a house and I'm a veteran and I'm old, I would like to find a place to live that's affordable.
Yeah.
You gotta take care of those folks. Like that's gonna happen. We spent how many years in Iraq and Afghanistan? There's a lot
Too
of
many.
veterans out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys and women who are veterans who are gonna need a place to some support in the end. And so the other thing I would tell people is, if you want your kids not to live in your house,
Yeah.
and then just wait for you to go so they can take the house.
Yeah.
By the way,
And then sell it for a real big profit because they didn't pay a penny for it. You did.
like you gotta have a place for them to go. You know, not everybody's gonna have the luxury that Shamir and I have, that we grew up in a community and we were able to buy a house in that community. You know, it's just not. So I would say, think about it that way. But the most like the idea that you need people to do that, and we have people. Lowell is the employee hub for the region. So if you own a business in and around Lowell, the people that work for you come from Lowell. They don't.
Yeah.
They're not. A ton of them aren't coming from Drake. They're not coming from Chelmsford. They're coming from Lowell, and so those people need a place to work, a place to live. The teachers, the police officers, the firefighters, all those people need affordable places to live. So I'm sure they'll. Like I said, I think that the city council and the city manager will come to some accord at the end of the day. Plus, the market's just going to do it too.
Yeah.
The market will do it.
So how do you see the role of the university in all this? There's, I've heard when the university first announced the Link project, there were a bunch of folks, most people were excited, but there were some whispers out there, oh, that's going to completely gentrify the neighborhood, and it's going to affect the Acre, because that Link extends really quickly up into the Acre neighborhood. Do you see that as a challenge for the work you're doing and in creating affordable home ownership, or do you see it as a partnership? Because if you think about it, workforce housing for these people just out of college, it has to be affordable to a degree, right? Because they haven't built their career yet and made the money to buy their big mansions.
We had a community development corporation in Lawrence called Lawrence Community Works. It made the world of a difference for me when I was in Lawrence. We, being the CDC in the Acre for Lowell, are going to only add value to all of this other development. They're putting Merrimack Street. The city is going to redevelop Merrimack Street. Not redevelop. They're going to repave Merrimack Street, sidewalks and streets. Right.
Father Morrisette Boulevard on the other side.
Yeah.
The state government is going to do that, and there's also going to be maybe a rotary over by the school. There's all this stuff happening around it. If you're a kid growing up in the Acre and you walk by empty buildings, you have a sense that nothing is possible. Like, if these buildings can't be anything, maybe I can't be anything. So that these things are growing there, that now the college is there, the university is there, man, that's a big thing to have in your backyard, and you can aspire to that place. And so we see the Link project as, again, a thing that we can aspire to. And while they're building market rate housing for the Link, on the table has to be about building affordable housing for folks who might work there or support that. So I think it's a tide that lifts all boats.
There's no question it does. But also, I think what we have to ensure is that there's enough leadership and communication to all people that, you can do it. And the thing is, when you talk about the university and you talk about Middlesex, we are fortunate to have two great schools. But Middlesex, especially for people in the Acre that don't have an education, to be able to provide that education and be able to say, and explain to people what is, for many people, generational wealth is a term they just don't understand. But if you get them to understand it and create the opportunities and the housing, is there another way we can just add to that? In other words, we really have to be able to ensure that we can communicate all of this good that's going on to the people.
Yeah, no, so we try.
Do you see them?
Yeah, no, CBA
raise?
is a membership-based organization.
Yeah.
So you can be a member.
Yeah.
All you'll do is live or work in Lowell and support the mission of the agency. And so you can be a member, and the membership and the community has such a great voice in our organization. And so we are always talking to them about those things. And the programs we run, they're not just like picked out of thin air.
Yeah.
We run an after-school program to give people opportunity to go find work. We run an ESOL program to teach people how to speak English so they can go find a food pantry, so they can extend their dollars that they are in the places they can find work for. It is really about programs that support people in their trajectory out of poverty.
No, that's what I wanted you to bring up. Oh, okay.
He has a much better way with words than you.
Yeah, I know, absolutely.
You and
That's
I
not
do.
true.
No,
Yeah, but it's this. You have to have.
But people have to hear that.
Yeah,
coming from.
and so we talked to them, in 𝐃𝐚𝐬, we talked to them in Spanish, Haitian Creole, say, hey, this is the path from the lowest rung coming into American society, how you get to generational wealth. It's why 6 Degrees is so important, so we can raise some money around these programs. It's really important to do that so folks can see themselves in the work. And in the end, we will be partners to all these things that are happening. If people are talking about Link, and I think it's important to talk about, but Lowell Housing Authority is building 2 huge, affordable housing developments right across the river from that. We are going to plan a huge redevelopment of the North Canal. We got North Canal in 1986,
So, yeah.
and it was used then. And so we got a place for people to live that has a sense of that it's a really nice place and taking care of them in a real decent way. But I see all that stuff, especially the partnership with the university, all is like raising all boats and like an aspirational thing,
So,
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just what you were talking about. Mr. Martin always says you can go from pre-K to PhD without ever leaving the city, and I think that's so fantastic with the public schools, Lowell High, and then Middlesex and UMass Lowell. So that's fantastic.
So what's great is
Acre.
we're talking about vision, right? You got a vision, and in your current role, and yours, Shamir, you have an opportunity to lay out a vision, and then you have time to plan it out and see it become reality. Unfortunately, political reality gets in the middle of it. And you were previously in a role where, you had to run for election.
Yeah.
And you also had to work with a council that had to run for election every couple of years. How difficult is it to get those two, the political need to see instant results or instant gratification and appease people today versus kind of a long-term planning and realizing there may be a little bit of sacrifice and a little bit of growing pains? How do you juggle that in the 2025 political climate?
I don't know.
Because I think that's what I saw playing out on the council floor last
I will
week
tell
with the
you this.
discussion of Lowell Forward. Is this like, hey, listen, the residents are telling us in certain neighborhoods are telling us X, Y, Z. You want me to lay out a long-term plan that they feel threatened by, and I see so many things kind of freeze and progress stalls, development stalls.
Yeah, I think it's going to be people talking to people. It's going to be neighborhoods talking to neighborhoods. I think the elected class can make situations where people can have those conversations that's not in the political arena, so it doesn't feel like you're actually fighting with each other, you're actually just talking with each other. And so having this conversation, you may still not get where you're going, but you can make some progress. I think the battle for fighting the housing crisis in Massachusetts and in the country is a marathon. And we will be frustrated at points and set back at points, but I think that people will continue to do their best effort to move it forward. And time is it's funny because the moment the ice breaks, it'll move fast and you're like, oh my God, all of a sudden all this stuff is happening. And you'll feel like, oh my God, for 10 years we were walking and all of a sudden we're running. And it'll be development by development. But I think you can do it. I don't have a crystal ball how to do it with the current political environment. But
Well, you talked about communication to people and talking to people. At one time, Lowell had 2 radio stations, a major newspaper with a large distribution and what have you, and other smaller newspapers. And so the message could get out so many different ways. So today, it's harder to get that message.
and
But so you're talking about direct contact now.
somebody says you were lucky when you were made, like the paper was just not as involved. It was miserable because no one knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
That's the
No one
point.
knew what you were doing. Now it was hard because you guys had a morning edition and an evening edition, right?
Yeah.
So literally, you could wake up, stub your toe, everybody would know about it,
Yeah.
have dinner, and say something about your toe being stubbed at nighttime, and everybody would hear about it because everybody read the same paper, listened to the same news shows. That doesn't exist today. Facebook has 100 different places, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. I do think that hurts us. So that means you got to go door to door. So we go door to door, chop dinner, one of the things we do.
Yes, Loli actually talks about how she wears sneakers as one of our coworkers. She wears sneakers every day so that she can walk where she needs to go and find the people where they are to talk to them and bring them in and get them the resources that they need. That's how CBA started.
That really is interesting.
That's how we started, and that's how we keep going. We knock on doors, we talk to people.
Loli was a kid at the table with her mom when they were organizing CBA.
Oh, yes, yes.
Shamir?
Yep, and myself, born and raised a little bit in the Acre until we moved to Centerville. But yep.
So, one final question for me regarding this, and what I see as the biggest challenge to the creation of housing of any type and really any other development: the cost of building anything in Massachusetts in particular. And I know I like to pick on the former Lowell mayor about the
do you?
the skyrocketing
I
costs
didn't know
of
that.
Lowell High School, which they've managed to keep hidden for one more week, but that'll come out. But it's not just that. I mean, you look at a Rourke Bridge project that was 60 to 80 million, and then 160 million, and now 273. And I'm guaranteeing
Wait a minute. Look at Brockton now.
Yeah.
700 to $1 billion, maybe.
Correct. White Stadium. We're finding out what's happening to White Stadium in Boston. So I think one of the realities is to build anything and progress, it's costing a lot more than people are estimating. And there is a finite amount of money at some point, right? I mean, look at Massachusetts. We've implemented, we legalized marijuana sales or cannabis sales medicinally, recreationally. We followed that up with gambling revenue. We've thrown in, the millionaire's tax, and still, you're always crying, we need more money. How do you get out of that cycle?
So I would say this, we're going to ask people to come next Thursday and give us a donation so that we can run our agency. If you find later that we use that money inappropriately, would you ever come back to another time? It's important to ask and important us to give and to see that we're going to have a great outcome with that money.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to that? If you've not seen heard the podcast about the creation of the 𝐃𝐚𝐬 Bridge, the tunnel,
The big dig.
You should listen to it. What I got from it is like, hey, this thing is going to cost a lot of money, but do you have the faith in the people you've elected and that you support to spend that money wisely, even when there might be overrun? Yeah. That's the job of people who end up having to spend that money. And I followed a guy into out of office who had very little trust from people, and I ended up doing some stuff that people said, oh, he did that. I said, yeah, but people trust that they're going to get the big bang of the bucks. It's not that there's an overrun. Is that, hey, do people trust you to have seen some of it coming?
Absolutely.
And in the end, is it going to be, now if the end, the product isn't great, that's the other piece of it. And if the product isn't great, then people will have issue with that. But we built the Hoover Dam. You know how much money that costs to do? And it stands today. These things are going to cost us collectively a lot of money to do, and by the way, we have to do it, or our kids are gonna be left to need this infrastructure that's no longer there. But the tool is to do it in a way that people can trust and not have that many issues around it. And I think you have a group of people doing that now, so I wouldn't be so hard on them on the overruns.
This guy's good. Tom Golden, instead of 5 years, how about 3? We'll nudge him up. But no, that was a phenomenal point. Because everybody points to the big dig as this disaster because of the cost overruns. And it was when you look at the numbers. But when I drive into Boston now and I see all the development and what has happened, what North Station was versus what it is today, and then everywhere along the development along the Rose Kennedy Greenway and what's happened at the seaport, and I'm like, you know what? Because of that big dig, no matter how much it costs, Boston has seen untold billions of development and tax revenue as a result. I know politically
and
it's never enough,
livability.
but right, Boston has transformed, and by extension, you talk about you crawl, and then something explodes. Same thing as you're going in on 93, getting onto the 𝐃𝐚𝐬 Bridge. Look out to your left.
Yes.
There's Charlestown. All these what used to be ruins, and now look at all this development out there, and you can see out into the distance Encore Casino, and that's what I'm hoping eventually happens in Lowell, because if it's possible in Charlestown, damn it, it's possible in Lowell and Lawrence too.
Amen to that. And I think the pride that you will have the first graduating class from that high school, every argument will be forgotten.
Yeah.
The pride.
Yeah.
I went to Lawrence High School. It's gold brick building. They had a similar fight. They put it on the outskirts. No one remembers that fight. All they remember is that when we go to graduation, the field house is beautiful. It's like downtown. It's just a sense of pride of all this stuff, and that's what you'll have, along with all the other stuff that you're talking about, the housing as well. People are living and working and working downtown. We had an argument with somebody who had a donut shop downtown. He said, "What are you going to do for us?" And I'm like, "We're going to bring people downtown." Well, that doesn't help me. People don't know. I'm going to give you customers. You need customers to run your business downtown. And there's so many people who live in the Acre that we want to make sure they are walking from their homes in the Acre to businesses in the Acre. And also create it in a way that people from all the other neighborhoods want to come down and have a good time. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been to Sizzling Kitchen. I always want to sizzle chicken because I like the chicken there. Places like that are just thriving and they're really great food. But there's, people have to get people in those spaces. And I think if you look around where they are at, you could probably build 100 units of housing just where they're at. Because there's a couple of empty lots, a couple of empty buildings too there. And so that's why the housing is the answer to some of these problems.
All right. Anything else from you, Mr. Former Lowell Mayor? Fascinating conversation. I want to thank the both of you. And one more time before we give people the information on how they can learn more about everything that you're doing at the CBA, I assume through the website, but also let's get some more folks out to 6 Degrees of the Acre at the Hellenic American Academy next Thursday.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You can find us online, cbacre.org. We are on Facebook and Instagram. We are on LinkedIn. Yep. And we're very excited about our event next week. So thank you so much. And Shop Tonight.
Shop Tonight. And then next week, come and celebrate, the champion of the Acre, in Jay Lenahan, and come and have a good time. We're going to have some good food made by some local folks.
All right. CBA CEO Dan Rivera, thank you so much for joining us. You got to come back more often. You're much more eloquent at saying things, but also much more positive. And I think I need a lot more of that. Thank you.
I'll talk to my board if they'll let me back. I'm trying to get in trouble.
I'll talk to your board chair. She's one of the few that likes me. Shamir Rivera-Quintal, thank you as well for all you do in the community and for joining us today as well. Mr. Former Lowell Mayor, thank you.
Not talking to him.
Next week, we've got Director of Elections Will Rosenberry joining us.
Okay.
He's really good. He's a really good guy. He was really sharp at the state. He helped us through a lot of problems in Lawrence. He's a good guy.
Yes, he is. So we'll talk about the upcoming Lowell elections with him. Thank you to all of you for joining us as well here on the Daily Pulse. As we like to say, the Daily Pulse, we keep our finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. Till next time, everybody, stay safe. I'm going to now say stay cool out there because we're moving into some warmer weather, and we'll catch you on the other side.